Pete Buttigieg's huge splash into the national consciousness was due in part to this woman, Lis Smith. She was a senior advisor in the Buttigieg campaign, director of communications, and she's given up the dirt on her time with Pete and her own career outside of Pete, which also has a lot of dirt in it. The book is called Any Given Tuesday, A Political Love Story. Reviews are solid, but there's only one review I care about, and that's Mary Rarick, who has just finished the book. Now, I'm going to tell you this, Mary. I love Pete Buttigieg, but I have not read this book, and right now I don't intend to read this book because I try very hard to not get caught up in the whole Pete mythology. I try to stay focused on what Pete has to say and what Pete does. Therefore, I've not read the Chasten book. This book, is there good Pete stuff? And then outside of the Pete stuff, is there enough for a book?
It's more about her love story with politics, how politics disappoints her and she keeps going back. There's just so much drama around that. That's what's compelling. What happened behind the scenes? I love behind the scenes stuff. And I love knowing how they pulled things off. Do you remember when Pete was running for the DNC chair and he was down in Houston, that whole thing? And I think it was in January, like 2017. Remember, right after Trump came into power, he put into place this Muslim ban, as it became known. And there were these people on planes already, they're in the air and they landing at these airports. So the airports became these scenes of these huge protests. And his campaign, Liz, says, and others in the room too, how about let's sneak off to the airport? Basically giving everyone else there the slip. Totally scoops all these other campaigns. Once they got to the airport, Pete just stood amongst a crowd of people and started talking about how we are a nation built on immigrants, how what makes our country great is this amazing tapestry. It's one of those things that broke through. And of course, all the other campaigns, the other candidates running for DNC chair, they came racing later, but nobody paid any attention.
Everybody is always eating Pete's dust. I love snark. Is there snark? She seems like, Lis Smith seems like she would have some snark.
So much snark, so much, and so well described. This is such a well-written book too. You would, the writing style is actually very similar to yours. It's just delicious.
I don't know. I mean, if you're Lis Smith, anything after Pete Buttigieg, it's kind of be a letdown. I mean, to go from that campaign, which just skyrocketed, and to be a part of it when it was small, and then to be a part of it when it was a booming success. And now she just has to sort of move on. No offense to Mallory McMorrow. I know she's working with the McMorrow campaign right now in Michigan, and that's great. But, she doesn't exactly have the Pete Buttigieg excitement factor. So I don't know how you move on.
Well, or does she? I mean, one of the things that Liz says in the book is that the next Pete Buttigieg isn't going to be found on Meet the Press, right? The next Pete Buttigieg is out there. And she says there are about a dozen of them. And they are the Mallory McMorrows that are out there, that we know they're out there, the same way he was out there. And we just didn't know about him.
She was the person, a lot of people looked at the magic of that campaign and they contributed it to her, fair or unfair. But what's your personal take on Liz and what she did for the campaign?
Well, she says she could maybe take credit for 5%. The rest goes to Pete Buttigieg. But think about it this way. She's also the person whose strategy, get on every media outlet, no matter how large or how small. Yeah. That's how I found him. I found him on a tiny, teeny podcast, The West Wing Weekly. I did not, and when I heard him, I thought to myself, where has this man been my entire life? This is my President Bartlett. So that strategy and putting him on Fox News, I mean, it works. So you got to give her some credit there. I just have so much respect for the courageous way that she goes out there. She makes mistakes and then she just keeps moving on. She kicks back a drink and keeps moving on.
She had a job offer and then lost it because of her romantic interaction with Elliot Spitzer, who got blown out of the water for dabbling with hookers. That was pretty much the end of his political career. Does she talk in detail about being with, I mean, there's like a 20-something year difference between the two of them. Does she talk about that relationship at all?
She totally talks about Eliot Spitzer, her relationship to him, you know, in a way that makes both of them very human. And that is just so compelling. And honestly, she did not feel like her relationship with him, which definitely they kept on the down low, she didn't see why that should be any reason why she shouldn't also work for the mayor.
I think you've sold me. I think I'm going to buy this book and probably read it before the weekend. The big question is, since we know that Lis Smith advocates for going to big outlets and little outlets to get your message across. That was the success for Pete. So assuming that we're going to ask her to be on You Can't Beat Blue, which we are, the big question is, who's going to do the interview? Is it going to be Mary or is it going to be Gary? You want this interview. You want this interview bad. You want to talk to Lis Smith, don't you?
Pick me. I saw her first.
All right, it's yours. We will work to get Lis Smith. Everybody who's watching this, go to Lis Smith's Twitter account and tweet her and say you want to see her interviewed by the wonderful Mary Rarick, who just gave the book a delicious review. And let's make that happen.